Hello, everyone, and welcome to Buzzing About Romance. I am Becky.
And I am Leah.
And this is our wrap-up of 2022.
It is. And let me tell you, it was not easy to get to the wrap-up of 2022 because we're idiots.
We are. Yes, we are idiots. And life and schedule. So this episode is dropping on January 1st of 2023, which is perfect because this gives you all a chance to know how we had up and until the very last minute to read all the books.
Not how we, because I have not changed my list for like a month. I take that back. It's been like 2 weeks, but I have not changed my list because it was stressing me out so bad. I couldn't do it anymore.
I did change out my list just today before we started.
Like to the minute, down to the wire.
I did. I actually have pin notes on my thing to switch to add some things. So you're welcome.
Cheese and rice, Rebecca.
I know.
Cheese and rice.
So on this episode of Buzzing About Romance, we are wrapping up our year in reading. 2022 had a lot of great and amazing books for us. We found some new favorite authors. We are excited to share all of them with you.
Mm-hmm.
So in this episode, after we get through kind of our year of wrap up and what we read and some highlights of what we read, we are going to go month to month from December of 2021 to November of 2022 and share with you our top read of that month. We also have a few honorable mentions to add to the list, and we will announce our top reads for the podcast of 2022.
Yes. And if you tuned into our last episode, you know that our contributors gave us their top reads, but we only allowed them to do 3 because there's so many of them. And then
we also did our community vote,
mm-hmm.
which was a Susan Stoker romance,
Finding Carly.
So we have some stats, and I like some good statistics, so we're going to share those with you. According to Goodreads.
Yes, and let me say, my Goodreads was messed up this year, so I don't know how accurate it is.
I also got the Kindle Unlimited email from Amazon that gave me
I didn't get that yet, and I am very upset about it. I'm feeling a little FOMO.
I got it. It was amazing.
Amanda, community member Amanda, said she has not gotten hers either, and so she is feeling frustrated as well.
Well, it sucks to be you. So the shortest book I read this year was Her Older Cowboy by Liz Fox. It was a total of 39 pages.
Mm-hmm.
My longest book was Beast of Bishop's Landing, which was 665 pages. That was technically a trilogy that was turned into a box set, and it's by Amelia Wilde, and it's part of the Midnight Dynasty Dangerous Press thing. My average rated given was 4.2 stars.
Mm-hmm.
Total pages read, which is really interesting because when you actually read more books than I did this year, but my total pages read was 75,093.
Yeah.
First read of 2022 was Dr. Mistake by Jay Salmon. I had 22 DNFs this year. And at recording, which there is still 5 days left in 2022.
Something like that.
Yeah, 7. I think, we've got 4 days. I have read 321 books at the time of recording for the year. What are your stats, Leah?
I'm actually looking up my number because I don't have that. But again, my Goodreads is messed up, so it's vague. It's off. And also I read a lot of workbooks, like books for work.
You are not justifying your things because I edited over 85 books this year. Okay. And we're not even talking the books that I did scrubs on because those don't count either.
All right. So let's see. So my year in books, it's changed a little bit. So my shortest book was Owned by the Billionaire by Gia Bailey, and it was 32 pages long. And then my longest book, which it doesn't technically count as a book because it is a box set by Carla Sorensen. It was 1,186 pages, and I will admit that I did not read the whole box set. I didn't read them all again. She has bonus epilogues in there, which is why I downloaded it and read it because I wanted the bonus epilogues.
Fair, fair.
But had I not read like the stories that were in it in completion, like I would have totally read it. My average rating that I gave books was 4.3 stars. And my pages read was 6,000 or 6,000, cheese and rice, 63,088 total pages for 369 books read. My first book of the year also was Dr. Mistake.
Okay.
And I did not count my DNFs, but I actually probably had about 10 to 15 this year, which is way more than ever because I am a firm non-DNFer, but I totally DNF'd books this year because there were some that I couldn't even handle getting through. Like,
Well, and to be very transparent, and we talked about this a little bit in our hot take episode, I absolutely have some reader burnout this year.
yeah, definitely. And I slumped super, super hard. And I am such a mood reader that there were a couple books that I started and I was not in the headspace to enjoy them. And so, like, they were books that by authors that I know I enjoy. And I was like, I'm not loving this book. I need to step away or it's going to make me super grumpy.
Yeah.
So,
My problem is there are some definite tropes that have to be exceptional.
yeah.
Exceptional for me to say, hey, I liked this book. I'm going to read it to the end.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I looked, 8 of my DNFs were this one specific trope.
It was Friends to Lovers, wasn't it?
It was 8 of them were Friends to Lovers that I DNF'd. And they're books by authors, either a new to me author that came highly recommended, or they're authors I've read in the past, but I could not get past the butts of Friends to Lovers.
Yeah.
Okay, so year of reading for us, like we said, we both kind of slumped a little bit this year. I'm having a little bit of burnout. But we did find some incredible new to us authors this year.
We did, yeah.
So for me, new to me authors this year were Adelaide Forrest. I really enjoyed. I found her by accident and read her contribution to the Heaven and Hell
collaboration series.
novellas. They were delightful.
They were delightful. And we talk about how we both went down that dirty rabbit hole in an episode, and Hell had more plot than Heaven. That was one of the like key out of context quotes that we had for the year.
New to me author I found this year was Kaylee Ryan.
Oh yes, it was your summer. Reading roundup of Ryan. It just kept going.
Carrie Elks was also new to me this year, and I love and adore her books, and I'm still trying to catch up on her backlist.
She has a big one.
She does, but everything I've read I've really enjoyed. So Lulu Moore was new to me this year.
Same.
Swati MH was new to me this year, and
she's on my new author challenge for the new year. Like, I have a list. Like, I was holding off on some of these authors that you have read because I didn't want to ruin my end of year list.
Well, and Swati would totally ruin your end of year list because her books are that good.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I didn't want to screw with my list. So there's like 2 or 3 authors that like I really want to read, but I'm waiting until I had to wait until like my list was finalized and we recorded this episode, so I didn't change my mind.
Vanessa Vale was new to me this year. And she writes delightfully sexy, dirty talking billionaires.
She does. She has a new book coming out very soon. Actually, it came out today,
the day we're
recording this episode, called Manhunt. It's a rom-com. It's so funny, so steamy. Like,
a week later, we're still obsessed about it.
Yeah, because Becky and I both were lucky enough to get our copies of it, so we got to read it before today, and it was perfection in book form. It
Yeah.
was a really good book.
And also new to us author is Emily Silver. I read her first in her football series and have read book 2 in the football series and really enjoyed them. And so I will be reading more of Emily Silver this year.
Yes, she is one of my 2023 authors. So for me, I discovered the wonderful and amazing Juliet Cross this year. And I have touted how amazing like her books are. And if you've listened to the podcast, you know I love the sex nachos, but honestly, like she writes a really great dynamic book and she's actually a paranormal most author. Like she only has like a couple different contemporaries, which are excellent and outstanding, but she writes a dynamic paranormal. The characters, the stories, the world that she created is just amazing. And I gave Katharina Mora a try this year. She was a hit or miss for me. Like a couple of her stories were really dynamic. I liked them, but there were parts of the stories that I didn't love. But I definitely will give her another read because the couple that she introduced for her book that's coming out next was really interesting. So I'm excited to give her another try. And I actually read Samantha Young this year for the first time. She's a Scottish author, I think. I think she like all of her stories take place in Scotland.
Okay.
And she's just like it was a suspense family series. I macheted it. I started at book 3 because it was like I really wanted to it just sounded really interesting. So I was like, oh, I'm just gonna start here. And it was fine. It stood alone and it didn't make me grumpy. And then I found Josie Jade, who actually is a debut author this year. She did co-write her books with Janie Crouch. She did the Resting Warrior series, which is a whole PTSD camp that was created. And it's really dynamic. And honestly, like I've read Janie Crouch for a couple years now, and it's one of those really well co-written books that I couldn't tell the difference between the author's voice. But then I don't know like if there was a majority of one and a little bit of the other since she was a debut, but it was really a dynamic book. And then I discovered Carrie Ann Ryan this year. I've had Carrie Ann Ryan's books on my Kindle for like forever, but it's one of those ones where she has such a daunting backlist that I keep putting it off. And now I'm kicking myself because she is wonderful and delightful. And there's so many good authors that we found this year.
There really are. So my most read authors of 2021, Kaylee Ryan, Catherine Cowell, Carrie Ann Ryan, and Carrie Elks.
I don't know who I read the most this year, but if I'm going based on like books released, like Lanny Lynn Vale is always a big one for me because she released 8 books this year. So I've read all of those. So if you're going by like those types of things, like if you released an entire series, I read them all.
So I read 238 different authors this year.
And I don't have a clue because I didn't get my Kindle email.
I didn't get that number from Kindle. Thank you very much.
Oh, that's right. You were a psycho and counted them.
I psycho and counted. So something new that we are doing this year is there are 2 authors in particular that had
let's preface this. It's because Becky and I couldn't decide, and we were like, we're just going to create new categories so we don't have to pick.
Right. I didn't
it's
know
our
what to pick.
podcast, so we can do what we want.
Well, and part of it is with our rule for our books that we're going to give you that were at the top of each month.
Mm-hmm.
We try to make sure that we're using a different author for each month.
Yeah.
That it's not, it's not all.
Well, and you and I try and not to overlap our authors as well. Like we try to give you 24 different authors.
Yeah. Well, so this year there were 2 series that were exceptional.
Yeah.
Exceptional. One series is completed, the other series is not. And when I say these are exceptional, these are books that like if you're just starting at book 1 right now, you are going to binge this and not step out of this series till you're done. These are books that as they were releasing, we were anticipating the next release. Like I would have sold Mike Burrier to get early access to these books.
I mean, we
Um,
did get early access to those books. You didn't have to sell Mike Burrier, but had we been able to get earlier
we
access,
could have sold him.
we could have sold Mike Burrier.
Um, I mean, he's got a spare kidney. It's fine. So, the best new sports series for
Yes,
buzzing about romance that we read this year.
it is not completed yet. It still has a ways to go, and we are not disappointed about
We
this.
are not. So, this series kicked off the year in January of 2022. And the latest release in this series comes out. This episode's dropping January 1st. The next book in this series, which is book 5, comes out on January the 3rd. So we are talking about the Pittsburgh Titans hockey series
You
by
got it right
author.
this time.
I did. By author Sawyer Bennett. And
Mhm.
this is so I have read all of Sawyer's hockey books. This series is very different than her previous 2 hockey series. These are a little bit more emotional. They're a lot more,
They're a lot slower burn.
lot slower burn. We're dealing with a little bit more of heavier topics. We're dealing with things like grief and survivor's guilt and PTSD and anxiety. But each story is exceptional. And I have found several new book boyfriends within this series.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
And
Like
if you haven't read this series, you need to read this series.
it's so good, and you can come into this series not having a clue about any past like Sawyer Bennett hockey or any past Sawyer Bennett anything. 'Cause she does have little side pieces that intertwine, but it's such a dynamic series in which the characters there's some characters like there's so much healing and power in the love that they create with their heroes and heroines, and it goes both ways. And there are some super swoony moments. There's some funny moments. I'm looking at you, Chip the chipmunk. There are some really hot moments. Also, looking at you, Cohen. Like
I don't know that Gage, man, oh man.
Gage is one of those guys, and Baden too. Like they have this innate ability to understand and know exactly what Sophie and Jenna need, and they create this amazingly safe space for their heroines.
Yeah.
But they don't hold them back, and they're not changing them. They're supporting the person that they truly are.
Okay, so the next category is best complete series of 2022. And part of the reason we picked this series because if we hadn't, all 5 of these books would have ended up on our lists.
Yes. So book 1 came out in February. It came out February 1st. So it started February out with a bang. Actually, 2 of my top reads, like this one and my February book, were February 1st. But it started in February and it ended in October. So this series, like it came out fast, but it is emotional and wonderful, and it is well written, and there's not a weak link in the bunch.
No, it does deal with some romantic suspense, so it hits those notes for the romantic suspense reader, but it's well written romantic suspense, and it doesn't rely on typical romantic suspense characters. So the series we're talking about is Tattered and Torn by Catherine Cowles.
Yeah.
And it's Tattered Stars is book 1, right?
Tattered Stars is book 1. Falling Embers is book 2. Hidden Waters, Shattered Sea, and Fractured Sky.
Yeah.
There's, again, these characters, they've been through so much emotionally and physically, and they find the person that complements them in the best possible way. And Catherine weaves these intricate stories that, again, like the hero and the heroine, there's no want to change the characters, like who they're with, but it's all in creating the safe space and healing space and allowing them to thrive
Yeah.
and showing them like they're that they have the ability to take control of their life that they never really some of the characters never felt before.
So, some honorable mention series that we want to talk about, but you can find reviews for these books on our website, and that is The Maxwells by Layla Hagan and Sawyer Bennett put to a close her Jameson Security Force series this year. It ends with
Yes.
Codename Omega, and it was this series again. If you like romantic suspense, this is an excellent series. You should give it a try. But you can find. Do you have honorable mention series?
Yes. Lanny Lynn Bale, her Battle Crows MC, the entire series came out in 2022. It started in January, ended in October, and it was just, I just love her books. Like they're a little out there, they're a little wild. She takes artistic license and does what she wants, and that's one of the reasons I really enjoy her books, but it was a really good family series.
So, okay, we are moving on to part two, where Lee and I are going to break down what our top reads of each month of 2020 were. But we're going to start with December of 2021, which means next year's episode will start with December of 2022. Please note, these
Mhm.
books were published in the month. That doesn't mean that we actually read them that month, that it came out. Most books have been reviewed on our website and may have been featured on previous podcast episodes. What we're telling you this is so that we can get through these without making this a 5-hour episode.
Yes, because we learned from our mistakes last year.
We did. So what we're going to do is we are going to go start in December. I'm going to give you my December top. Leah will give you her December top. We're going to give you the title, the author, and pretty much that's it.
That's it. Because if we basically Becky told me I can't talk about it because I have a tendency to ramble.
She does. But well, I want to get through this for you because we're at the end of this, we're then going to tell you what our top reads of the year were. And I'd rather spend a little bit more time on those
Yeah.
than anything else. The other thing to please note is I personally have two books that are titles that were printed with HarperCollins imprints. And while we continue to support the HarperCollins Union, we ask that if you choose to pick these books up and read them, please do so, support the authors, but do not review them. And we decided to keep these titles in my list because these are both written by BIPOC authors.
Well, and also like she read them a while ago and is still talking about them.
Yeah. Well, but they're also like, these are the authors that need our voice more than anybody else. So I just want to make sure that, you know, they're getting the respect and admiration that they also deserve. And I didn't want to leave them off because big business is stupid. So,
Well, and also you've raved about them for months.
for months. Okay. So kicking off, Leah will go first with December 2021. What was your
Okay.
top read?
My top read of December was Mine to Keep by Kennedy Mitchell. It is Protection Series, book 4.
My top read of December of 2021 was Stone Cold Notes. This is book 2 in the Seasons Change by Julia Wolf.
Okay, so January 2022, Brittany Saheen, The Broken One, and it is Falcon Fall Security, book 2.
So my January 2022 is Beyond the Play, which is by Kaylee Ryan. It is book 3 in the Out of Reach series.
Okay, so my February 2022 is Souls by Bryn Asher, and it is The Killers, book 6. And let me tell you, this is the one book I picked like as soon as it came out, and I hadn't like veered from it. I'm just going to say that little side note.
Well, I do want to say February was my hardest month.
If I hadn't had this book, then I probably it would have been tough. I had a really bad slump in February.
February was a very tough month for me. So I ended up with February of 2022 is Leave Me Breathless by Carrie Elks, which is book 3 in the Winterville series.
Okay, so March for me is Broken King by Bella Matthews. It is Restless Kings Book 2.
March for me was Dr. Heartless by Jay Salmon. This
So
is
good.
book 3 in her billionaire Boston.
For billionaire Boston billionaire bachelors.
Who cares? The 3 Bs. It's the Abbott Fritz family series.
Yeah, that would have been such an easier like series
So
to
much.
remember.
Yeah.
Too many fucking bees. Okay, my April is excuse me, Conquered by Riley Edwards. This is Triple Canopy, book number 6.
Um, April for me was One Way Back to Me, The Wilder Brothers, book 1 by Carrie Ann Ryan. And really, this series is this. I should have honorable mentioned this series. I don't know.
It's really good, but there's all E names, so you will be confused as fuck. Just to
You
put
remember
that
their
out
name
there.
from their book, but you can't remember anybody else.
No. My May book is, excuse me, Make Me Shiver by Marie Johnston. This is Oil Barons Book 2.
So my May book is Royal Club Pivot Book 1 by debut author co-writers Rebel Shaw. However, I don't think they are debut because this is
No,
this is Kaylee
Kaylee.
Ryan and Lacey Black writing under the name of Rebel Shaw.
Yeah, so it's a pen name debut, not an author co-written debut. So it's a little different there. All right, so on to June. So my June is Mary Carr. It is Italian Stallions Book 2, and the book is Hard and Fast.
So my June book is A Proposal They Can't Refuse. Oh my gosh. A Proposal They Can't Refuse. This is the Vega Family Love Stories Book 1 by Natalie Kenya. It's the grandpas.
Yeah, you love an old person in a book.
Also the audiobook, phenomenal.
Okay, so my July is a sci-fi book. It is Zoe Draven. It is The Horde Kings of Dakar, book 6, the final book in the series, and it is Throne of the Horde King.
My July book is After Hours on Milagro Street by Angelina M. Lopez. And this was really close to being a top read, but it was my most exceptional read in July.
Mm-hmm. So August, it is Susan Stoker for me, and it is the Refuge Book 1. This is a brand new series, a brand new direction of series, and it's called Deserving Alaska.
So August for me was an accident
It was.
because I needed to pick a book to do with Rachel for a quick shot, and
It's a happy accident.
I was looking through top books on Kindle, and this book was listed, and this is Asher by Samantha Whiskey.
Okay, September, I went down the Michelle rabbit hole Sinners or the Michelle Hurd Sinners rabbit hole recently, and this is Sinners Book 5, and it is Captured by a Sinner. It's kidnapping. It's a love language.
My
Just gotta
September
read it.
book is Always Her Love, The Steals at Silver Island, Book 4 by Melissa Foster.
That one was almost one of my top reads, but since it's one of your months, I'm not using it anymore. So October actually was a really good month for me, so it was kind of hard to decide, but I ended up picking Folk Around and Find Out by the Queen, Miss Penny Reed, and it is Good Folk Modern Folk Tales Book 2.
So, October 2022, the reason this book is picked for me is because this author made me appreciate a second chance romance without feeling ragey.
Mhm.
And so it is Temporarily in Love by Danica Flynn. This is book 3 in the McGregor Brothers Brewing Company. And it's just such a great small town romance.
It really is. And then my final pick, November 2022, is another sci-fi romance, and it's Conqueror by Anna Hackett. And this is the final book in the Galactic King series, and it's book 4.
So my final book for the list in November 2022 is Adrift by Swati MH. If I could go back on my list, and Leah, you too, if there's one book on this list that you hope everybody will take a minute and read, for me, it is Adrift.
Yeah.
What book is it for you?
Honestly, for me, I really want everyone to read Throne of the Horde King. It's just such a good series, and I loved it so much. And I mean, we have people in our community that have read it because they're in my secret society and they do what I want. But it really is such a really dynamic series and book in the world that Zoe Draven created. The imagination in these sci-fi books is just it boggles my mind sometimes, the world that these authors create.
So now we are moving
You
on.
laugh, but it's a good book, Dan.
Now we are moving on over to our best top reads of 2022.
Yes.
I only have one that is solely mine. So I'm going to give you mine, then Leah's going to give you hers, and then the one that is actually the Buzzing About Romance podcast host's top read of the year.
Yeah.
Which last year was From the Embers.
It was.
Which is so funny because it is taking off like gangbusters now.
But it's such a damn good book, and Allie deserves every second of that.
So for me, my very top read of 2022 was Fated to Bloom by Julia Wolf. So a couple things went into this. One, I read a shit ton of Rockstar romances this year in preparation of for our Build a Rock Band series, our episode that Jenny and I did. And I read a ton of rock stars. And at the end of the day, Fated to Bloom, I think I read that back in August.
Yeah, I think it came out in August.
It came out in July.
We read it like right around the time it came out, though.
Yeah. This book is a friends to lovers romance.
That you did not
and a slow burn. But
like two of Becky's least favorite things.
I know. And it is an age gap and it's neighbors, so it's close proximity. This book wins for a couple of reasons. It's a biracial relationship, but in this book, the author also delves into some things that we don't often talk about. Heroine takes Plan B. There is just the fact that they're friends. It had such a natural progression to their relationship. They started out as strangers and neighbors and became friends. They have a loose connection. But like the guy didn't even realize they were dating. And in essence, he hadn't been dating anyone else for a year. But he'd been dating her. So there's just some little things that were so well done. And really what this comes down to is if an author can make me 6 months later still be loving a friends to lovers romance that I want more people to read.
In general, if an author can make you love a friends to lovers romance, it doesn't matter if it's 6 months later. If you talk about it more than once, it's a win.
It is a win. So my very top read of 2022 is Fated to Bloom by Julia Wolf.
Okay, so my top reads, I couldn't decide because these both were really good books. So Rebecca Yarros, Reason to Believe, this came out in April and I talked about it incessantly for like weeks on end. And even still, like if somebody like talks about like a firefighter romance, this is a book that you need to read. It's a kind of age gap. It's not a huge age gap. Siblings, best friend. The hero, like he is a damaged guy. And the heroine has been in love with him for years, but he's just did not have the best home life and the best upbringing. And there's some history that she, at the moment, like she says some things and her brother like powers through. And let me tell you, her brother is a douche nugget. You will not like him, his reaction. And when he finds out, like, it is not okay. It is one of those situations where, like, you want to dick punch the brother, but there's foster kids and the whole, there's a lot of really hard topics in this book. And it was just so well done and so good. And it's just really good. Rebecca Yarros is an excellent writer, and I just really enjoy her books. Actually, one of her books was one of my top reads last year, too. And then also, Resting Witch Face by Juliet Cross. It is a second chance paranormal romance between a vampire and a witch. And her story and her lore and just the creation of this world and the way this story takes place and the reasonings behind their breakups and they've been apart for years, and but they live in the same city, they've had interactions, but there's always something holding them back. But it's so well done and it's believable, and there's a lot of hurt and a lot of growth and a lot of understanding that they weren't ready for each other when they were together at the time. Like, they both needed the time apart, and it works. And it's not one of those second chance romances you're like, oh, like, that was really stupid that, like, it happened that way. But, like, for them, if they hadn't made the choices that they did, I don't think, like, they wouldn't be the people they are in the present in the book. But it's such a well done story.
So that brings us to the very top read of 2022 for both of us.
Yes.
And really, this book hit a lot of, was a hit for a lot of our community members.
It really was.
Yeah. As we read this book and we're talking about it, others were reading it and talking about it. And we all just fell deeply in love with these characters. It's a second chance small town romance, friends to lovers. And the highlight is a dog named Bernie Sanders and a little girl named Imogen that, hates the fucking chickens.
Imogen, like, her and those bastard chickens do not have a good relationship, and she has the pottiest potty mouth of a child.
She thinks she's a pirate.
She is wonderful and delightful, and Noah and Shay are just perfect. And if you have read Kate Canterbury, which it's In a Jam by Kate Canterbury, and if you've read her before and you read the Walsh family, it is the jam man. So if you have not read this book yet and you read the Walshes and you know who the jam man is, this is his book, and it is perfect.
It really is. It's such a great story. It's a chunk of a book, but doesn't feel big.
It does not feel big at all.
Anyway, it is absolutely worth a read, and it is a highlight. Don't let the cover fool you. It is not sweet. There is absolute spice in this book. So you can find a list along with all of our honorable mentions on our On the Shelf show notes at buzzingaboutromance.com. You can also go on over there and you can find a list of our upcoming dates, including book club, happy hours, plot a book, and reading challenges at bookcaseandcoffee.com/events.
Patreon, we would like to say a huge thank you to all of our Patreon members, because again, this would not happen if it wasn't for you. This past year would not have happened if it wasn't for you. You can find out details on how to join our Patreon at patreon.com/bookcaseandcoffee.
Yeah, our Patreon has grown so much in this last year. And it's really, every day I'm amazed at how awesome our community is. And I think, gosh, could this get any better? Like, it's pretty freaking phenomenal. And if you are looking for a community that talks about books, that you can also just talk about, like, if you just need a friend, we just have such an excellent community. And
we do. And it's one of those things where, like, it's a safe space. It's a safe space to vent. Like, whether it's a personal thing or a bookish thing, it is a safe space to vent.
It is. It is. And it's so cool to be a part of people's, big celebrations and send some virtual hugs when you need them. So think about joining us. Okay. So we would also like to take this minute Um, First of all, before we go forward to this last little announcement here, I do personally want to take a moment and say thank you to one Leah for being my co-host this year. It has been a wild ride, but we made it.
We made it.
52 Sundays of episodes and a million quick shots. It feels like we survived summer reading challenge and all sorts of chaotic things. Special thank you to
2022 was a year.
it was a year.
It's been a year.
Special thank you to all of our podcast contributors.
Mhm.
We have 5 amazing contributors that give us their time and their talent and their book suggestions. And they are some of the most amazing group of humans that I've had the pleasure of working with. I also would be remiss if we did not send a thank you to our producer guy, Mike Burrier.
Because without Mike Burrier, this podcast would not happen.
We wouldn't have anything without him.
No.
There's also a thank you to your Mike for supporting us along the way and,
Mhm.
accepting all of the crazy that comes with being part of the Buzzing About Romance podcast. And then a special thank you to you, the listeners. Thank you for coming each week and listening to us talk about books and sharing the books that we love. Years ago, I never would have imagined that I would have this amazing platform and this amazing community of people that love romance as much as I do. For a long time, reading has been a very solitary type experience. And since the start of this podcast, I've now found people that I can share this with. And it means everything. Everything to me. I never imagined that this would all be happening. And, we started in June of 2020, and here we are starting January 2023 with so much chaos.
It's a lot of chaos, but it's a lot of fun, and it's nice. It's one of those things where we have found such a great community to connect with, and we have created some amazing friendships with people all over the world.
All over, yeah. Well, and thank you to the authors for coming on and sharing their stories with us. And
thank you just for writing these stories that we enjoy and we can't stop. Like, we want to continue to read. Like, if it wasn't for you, we would not be here.
It's just been, there are days that I look at this and I'm like, wow. Especially because, I experienced some pod fade a little bit this year, which happens to everyone who podcasts. It starts to become, a little bit of a drain, and you have coming up with new ideas can sometimes be super stressful.
Mm-hmm.
But I look at this and I think, look at what we do, though. Look at what we do. We celebrated some really big things this last year.
We really did.
We had community members that added to their family. We welcomed new community members. We held, we sent virtual hugs and held virtual hands for those that experienced loss and heartache this year. It's overwhelming, and it's amazing. And I'm so lucky. So lucky.
Mm-hmm. It's an amazing piece of my life, to be honest.
Yeah. Really, I don't have a life if we stop doing this.
That's not true. You do.
Okay.
But it would not be as fulfilling as it is currently.
It wouldn't. Okay, so 2023. First of all,
2023 is going to start with a bang.
But if you have trope talks you think we should do, or you have an author that should be on our radar, if you have ideas for episodes, or if you want to know something.
Or if you have a Festivus gripe, let us know that too.
Well, if you have something like in Romance Landa you would like to know more about, covers, tropes, writing styles, evolutions of things, send us an email. Tell us, send us a DM. Just let us know, because we are open to all new and exciting ideas. We don't have much planned for this year yet.
No, that's not true. We have thoughts. We have in the works things. We don't have a lot set in stone.
We don't even have January really scheduled. Like, this is January 1st. We know, like,
what the fuck happened to December?
We have 4 of the 5 January episodes that we need to do.
Well, see, there we go. Oh no, that we need to do. I thought we had. Oh
no, and the one that drops next week, we haven't even written yet.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah, I took a vacation in December and didn't really pay attention to anything.
Well, and my youngest's birthday's in just like Christmas Eve, and so the whole month is a shit show.
Just anyway. So, okay, but
I digress.
One thing that is solid starting off January 2023.
Solid. It's the New to You author challenge. We had such a great time with it last year. That we decided to do it again this year. So new reading challenge to kick it off of 2023. So you must, and these are the rules, but as everybody knows, like our rules are very loose, people, very loose. But you must read at least 2 new to you authors each month to be entered into the monthly prizes, which we have no idea what those are going to be yet.
Book money.
Each additional new to you author you read will be counted as an additional entry, and you must submit each new to you author you read to our form for entry to count. And you can find all of those forms on the website. And any new to you author read between 1/1/2023 to 3/31/2023 counts for an entry. So you can read 15 new authors, you get 15 entries. You can read 2 authors, you can get 2 entries. It doesn't matter.
And what we want is we really want you guys to challenge yourself to step outside of the box of what you know. Mm-hmm. We want you, and so the next episode, we're going to talk about ways to discover new to you authors. Yeah. Some new to you authors that we have read that we think if that should be on your radar, but also some of the things that you can look for when some tips and tricks on how to find new to you authors.
Well, and like find new to you authors that might be intriguing to you.
Yeah, because we all have favorite tropes. And so there's ways that you can Google a trope that will take you into a Goodreads post that will show you authors that write of people that have shelved those books and will tell you that it has that trope in it. So, we want you to diversify your bookshelves. We also want you to read diversely. So if you are looking for recommendations of BIPOC authors, queer authors, debut authors, send us an email. We are happy to help you find some of those. And if we don't have the resources to help you find those, we have friends.
We know people who do.
We have friends that can help us do that.
That's true.
It's just really, it's one of those things that you will thank yourself. Now, finding new authors can absolutely be a struggle because you might have more hits. You might have more misses. It just really depends. But again, if you have a good community.
Every once in a while, you'll find an author that has a giant backlist and you go down that rabbit hole and you just can't stop. So sometimes it backfires.
I'm looking at you, Carrie Elks and Carrie Ann Ryan.
But we love introducing our community to new authors. We're constantly talking about new authors. And honestly, like our community has given Becky and I tons of new authors throughout the past couple of years. Like if it wasn't for our community, we wouldn't have read a third of the authors that we have.
No. Yeah. And again, you might have to put down your hangups of macheting a series because it might be a situation where book 4 kicks off the 12 book series and is better than 1 and 3. So there are some kind of things you have to give some grace to yourself and give yourself permission to break your own dumb rules.
They're not dumb rules. They are rules of the world that you do things in order. But I will say that sometimes I feel like a good girl macheting a series.
You are a good girl, yeah. Yeah. So, and we do have some honorable mention titles that we didn't talk about that were exceptional reads for us this year.
But Becky's going to do a blog post. I'm going to do a blog post. So if you want to see those, you just have to go to the website.
Yep. Okay, Leah. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course.
And to you, our listeners, happy 2023. Happy New Year. And until next time, everyone.
Happy reading, everybody.
Find us on Instagram at Buzzing About Romance or on Twitter at Buzzing Romance. If you like the podcast, please leave a review. If you'd like to support us directly, join the Bookcase and Coffee Patreon and receive exclusive content only available to Patreon members. Check out bookcaseandcoffee.com for our on-the-shelf show notes.